How many of you have ever eaten oatmeal? Okay, how many of you normally put brown sugar or cinnamon on your oatmeal? Okay, so how many of you have ever tried bacon or pesto on your oatmeal? Very few, right? That's sort of the basis for my cafe in Greenwich Village. It's called Oatmeals. And I'm the first oatmeal bar out there. It's sort of like a yogurt bar, but with oatmeal. I've created nearly 30 signature oatmeal bowls, ranging from sweet to savory oatmeal. Or you can choose your own toppings, and we offer everything from cheddar cheese to chocolate chips. When I was 8 years old, one day, I went to my mom's toolbox, and I took out a hammer and a screwdriver, and I went out in the backyard, and grabbed a piece of wood, and I started chiseling away at this wood block, and I carved a bear. And then I painted the bear, and I put a little red bow on its head. This was my first memory of being creative and wanting to make something with my hands. It couldn't have been mistaken for a Michelangelo or anything. But nevertheless, this is just one of my first memories. And I didn't know that I would ever express my creativity or my passion for creativity through food, much less oatmeal. When I was growing up, my father passed away tragically when my mom was 7 months pregnant with me. And even though she was a single mom and trying to make things work, she was awesome enough to nurture my creativity. And she used to take me to craft stores and down to the Smithsonian in DC to go to all the art museums, and she taught me how to cook. And I really loved cooking, but more than just cooking itself, when we would go out to restaurants as a family, I really enjoyed looking at a menu and seeing all the different options, so that the options excited me. So when it came time to go to college, I knew that I wanted to be in New York City because I wanted to be at the center of the culinary universe. So I came here, and of course, being here in New York, I was running around and trying all the great food spots, and after one too many slices of Joe's Pizza, or pies, really, the whole pies, and Magnolia chocolate buttercream cupcakes, my pants were getting very tight, and I realized I had put on much more than the freshman 15 pounds. Probably put on about 35 pounds. So I was like, what can I do? I have to get back in shape. And I started reading different health articles, and I just started reading a lot about oatmeal. And I started having it for breakfast because I was, on a student budget, and it was affordable and easy to make. And I had it for breakfast, but then I liked it a lot, so I had it for lunch, and then I was even having it for dinner. And the cool thing about oatmeal is it's this, blank slate that you can do a lot with flavor-wise. It sort of lends itself easily to a lot of flavors. So I started trying different ways to jazz it up, and just getting creative with it and being inspired by my meals out in restaurants and translating those meals onto oatmeal. And then all of a sudden it clicked with me, why hasn't anybody created an oatmeal bar? Because at the time, the single item specialty places were popping up in the city, like the rice pudding place and the macaroni and cheese place. And I just thought, maybe if I create an oatmeal bar, that's my sort of key into the culinary world, which really was my biggest passion. So I started bouncing this idea off of friends and family, and a lot of people were just like, well, that's interesting, but I don't know that you'll necessarily be able to make a living at that. But I didn't want to let go of the dream. And the interesting thing about oatmeal is we all have some kind of connection to it. Everyone in here, you've probably had a bite of it at one point in your life. Your parents fed it to you, or your grandparents fed it to you. It doesn't matter what your culture or socioeconomic background is. It's probably in your life at some point or another. And I figured that I could create an oatmeal bar that could provide that same kind of heartwarming feeling you get when you make oatmeal in your kitchen at home. Maybe I could create a really comfortable cafe that could translate that feeling. And I figured here in New York, where most people are rushing to work and having bagels, scarfing down a bagel really quickly, maybe this would be a nice soft contrast to that rushed world. So after college, I started working in the investment banking world. I didn't really know how to make this idea happen, and I didn't know anybody in the industry. So my nights and weekends were spent, planning and thinking about this idea and trying to figure out how to make it work. And I started taking some classes at NYU nights about how to start your own small business, budgeting for businesses, and that was one step in this long process. Finally, I decided to go to culinary school because I wanted to put myself on a level playing field with some of the other big chefs out there, and give myself some credibility, because I had already started to look at commercial real estate spaces for my store, and a lot of landlords weren't taking me seriously because at the time I didn't have a culinary background, and I was young and female, and unfortunately that didn't help me out much in the New York real estate world. I began collecting vintage oatmeal canisters from eBay and Etsy because I had this vision for the store which would have, advertisements, old-fashioned advertisements and canisters. So I began this collection that I put away, hoping that one day I could make this happen. So years go by. This was over a decade-long dream. I was in the investment banking world still, and in a comfortable position where I was making a decent living and being able to have a paid vacation and healthcare and all those wonderful things. And I was really scared to make the final leap and leave that world to follow this passion. But luckily, I finally found the right space that just felt like a perfect fit in Greenwich Village for my store, and took that final step to leave my job. And then my days were filled with running to the Bowery restaurant supply stores and, negotiating for equipment and laying on the floor of my apartment and sketching out the layout for my counter space in the store. It's this tiny store, so there's not much space. And then it was, finally time to get the doors open, and it was just crazy. I unpacked those oatmeal canisters and dusted them off because they'd been in a box for almost a decade, put them up on these decorative shelves, and I was like, wow, I finally did this. It was, very exciting. And Starbucks had started selling oatmeal at the time, and they said that oatmeal was their fastest selling food item ever. So I was very happy to get the store open when I did, because I was very scared that somebody would do this before me, because everybody has different ideas out there. And McDonald's and Jamba Juice and all the big companies started adding hot oatmeal to their morning menus. So I really felt like I was lucky to make this happen at the time that I did. So now, this many years later, I've been open 2.5 years now, and I can't say that running a business is easy. I'm working very hard, but it's really exciting. My employees and I have a great time experimenting and coming up with new ideas and sharing the OatMeals experience with the world. And I'm very lucky to have made that happen. There's a quote that says, "If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life." I don't know if that exactly works, because I do work very hard, and I get home from long days and take off my shoes, and I have oats in my shoes. But I'm really happy that I followed my passion, and I think back to that bear that I carved when I was 8, and it's just really neat that I was able to take my creativity and now offer something to the world and change the world one oatmeal bowl at a time.